Hello, everyone. Today, the topic is Madden NFL Football, a video game franchise that premiered as John Madden Football on June 1st, 1988.
Welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews, covering one unsystematically chosen topic at a time. I am your host, Brandon Griffiths.
And I'm Michaela Keaton. Published by everyone's favorite game studio, Electronic Arts, ultimately landing under their EA Sports moniker once that division was established.
That's right, the company that had the most downvoted comment in Reddit history, where they defended going all in on microtransactions in their Star Wars Battlefront game, claiming that charging to unlock characters gave players a sense of pride and accomplishment.
Gosh, I can't believe people didn't like that, Brandon. Featuring commentary originally by John Madden, with play-by-play by Pat Summerall, with more recent personalities like Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Tom Hammond, Phil Simms, Jim Nantz, and many other real-life broadcasters.
And Michaela, there is almost no way to play a decent amount of any Madden game with the commentary on without starting to legitimately hate it aggressively. But they have gotten better about having far more pre-recorded lines so it doesn't feel as repetitive as it once did.
Starting in 1993 with Madden 94, the game acquired licenses to use real NFL teams and logos, and gaining rights to use player names in Madden 95. Then, starting in 2001, real coaches were also licensed to be featured. But it is important to note that those who were not in the Players or Coaches Associations were not included and were replaced by placeholder representations.
They use that as their excuse, but my theory is it was probably pretty tough to capture Bill Belichick's cheerful, lighthearted demeanor with the limitations of PS2 graphics.
For a brief description, Madden NFL Football is a single or multiplayer simulation of professional football that releases a new edition every year to include updated personnel and features.
Alright guys, let's just dive right into this topic. I started playing this game franchise for the first time on the Sega Game Gear version of Madden 95.
Of course, Game Gear was a handheld console that was Sega's answer to the Nintendo Game Boy that had a whopping 3.2-inch backlit full-color display.
I mean, that thing was just incredible, guys. It could sometimes last over 30 minutes before it burned through all 6 AA batteries.
This franchise has obviously evolved with improvements in video game technologies and was originally only available on the computer platforms the Commodore 64 and 128, the Apple II, and MS-DOS.
That's right, and it has since become available on all major consoles with different editions over the years, including Nintendo, Sega, Sony PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox, as well as Mac, Windows, and mobile platforms, among many others. But it has definitely never been available on the Nintendo Switch for some reason.
Madden has had many competing video games over the years, especially in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, like NFL Game Day, NFL 2K, and NFL Quarterback Club, all of which either didn't catch on or ceased development for a reason I'll explain in a bit.
But it's important to note that there were other football games that were not as direct competitors to Madden, like NFL Blitz, NFL Extreme, and NFL Street, which were more arcade-style games with exaggerated and over-the-top takes on pro football. And to be fair, I believe NFL Street was published by EA as well.
One major note is that Madden has paid for an exclusive license to all NFL representations in video games since 2004, effectively eliminating any competing franchises from developing NFL games with current players, coaches, or stadiums.
The choice to get exclusive licensing has been panned by fans and critics more and more over time. The arguments criticizing the monopoly the game has on NFL licenses are pretty valid, in my opinion. Before 2004, competing games like NFL Game Day and NFL 2K forced all competing games to get better by innovating, taking more risks, and eliminating bugs.
But since then, with perhaps the exception of transitions to newer generation consoles, most Madden games have appeared more like carbon copies of the prior years, with minor improvements to help with marketing.
Honestly, there have been a sad number of times where a large selling point for my purchase of a new Madden game was mostly just to get updated rosters. Like, I knew nothing would blow me away about most new additions.
As was the case with many franchises upon the advent advent of consoles with higher quality 3D graphics like Nintendo 64 and the first Sony PlayStation, the ability to process more detail added greater quality and feel to the games, and they greatly improved, especially with the next generation of consoles.
That's right, possibly an even bigger jump in quality came with the transition to PS2 from PS1. Like, when I first played Madden 2001 on that console, I legitimately didn't know how they could make the graphics any better, and this was what they looked like. One of my biggest gripes on that note is that with the many iterations of this game I have bought over the years, in addition to minimal innovation, there are still a lot of weird programming glitches or oversights.
Oh, right, you were telling me about this. You mentioned something about weird tackles or missed tackles that don't make sense in terms of physics or human ability.
Oh man, it's been awful. For a while, the games had a horrible habit of transforming one player into another on screen, which was often hilarious if they were another race or size.
You also mentioned things like idiotic decisions on the part of computer-controlled teams, such as not going for it on fourth down when they clearly should, running when they should pass, especially in time crunches, and then immediately wasting a timeout because of it, not going for the sidelines when they should be trying to stop the clock, zero strategy when using timeouts, and many others.
These happen in varying degrees depending on user difficulty levels, and especially since coming to consoles like PlayStation, the yearly releases have at least strived to feel like simulations of real-life games, presenting gameplay like TV broadcasts, including improved visual aids, camera angles and close-ups, and less generic commentary, among many other things, but honestly, a lot of those novelties wear off ridiculously fast for me.
While early games featured minimal game mode choices like only exhibitions and seasons, over the years they introduced franchise mode, which allowed for multiple decades of play with one organization. Variations allowed for coach-only play and front office management, superstar modes focusing on the career of one player or coach, which could be existing or user created, and a variety of other similar modes.
The franchise mode allowed for several creative features over the years. For instance, you could create an expansion team complete with customized locations, logos, and uniforms, fantasy draft options allowing users to assemble their own custom roster using existing players and teams. Some iterations allowed for inclusions of retired Hall of Fame players or user-created players. I had a franchise on Xbox 360 with Joe Montana at quarterback and Barry Sanders at halfback, where I shattered all major offensive game, season, and career records.
In the last couple of decades, you have also been able to customize playbooks, coaches, upgrade stadiums, and use alternate uniforms, among many other things.
Myself personally, I have for the most part gravitated toward the basic franchise mode. The modes focusing on a single player can be fun, but over time I find them too limiting because they often make you play from the POV of your player, which can be difficult to get used to, and you usually don't control play calls. Coach only and front office centric modes bore me to tears. I don't want to buy a football game to be able to decide concession and parking prices or structural upgrades like I'm playing some kind of pro sports owner tycoon, but I do tolerate these features better when they're kept integrated with the more traditional franchise mode.
Now, as far as the actual gameplay goes, the game has managed to stay mostly fun over the years, despite some of those flaws we've mentioned already. You can play on Rookie, Pro, All-Pro, or all Madden difficulty settings, and obviously it can get pretty tough to achieve success the harder you set it.
On Rookie, a very average player can dominate any team pretty easily and make a great deal of mistakes with minimal consequences and just rack up stats. For example, the last time I played on Rookie with the current 2024 Detroit Lions, I had 7 rushes for 437 yards with Jahmyr Gibbs, including 7 touchdowns, all with no broken tackles because he went untouched to the end zone every single time. So it's a bit of a joke if you have any skill whatsoever.
The more advanced difficulties can get progressively more irritating even for the best players, as you're more at the whims of what the game allows you to do. On a rare occasion, I've heard Brandon has actually even been known to throw a controller down in a fit of rage.
Well, in the words of Ron Swanson, I am not a sore loser, it's just that I prefer to win, and when I don't, I get furious.
Okay.
More recent installments have had what is considered more realistic player movement than earlier iterations, but oftentimes the new movement styles trade one lack of realism for another.
These days, virtually no one is capable of stopping immediately, regardless of their speed, and have annoyingly forced momentum of an additional step or two.
Which only became a thing around the time of PS4 and Xbox One, if I recall. The preset simulations of tackles or broken tackles have always been unrealistic in different ways. In older games, players would legitimately just bounce off of each other. But now, the myriad of pre-designed movements basically play out completely a lot of the time in a nonsensical way. Broken tackle animations can prevent other players from assisting in bringing someone down when they definitely should be able to.
And I noticed there are a lot of tackles in short yardage situations that should at least look like an effort is being made to stop a ball carrier from gaining any more yardage than necessary, but frequently a pre-designed tackle converts an easy stop into a defender hurling the runner over the first down line.
And all of this stuff appears cool when it comes about in a logical way, but when it doesn't, it can be frustrating and look ridiculous. This might be just the way I like to play, but I also have gotten annoyed with just how much of a real game simulation Madden tries to be. I touched on this earlier, but it often forces me to sit through endless cutscene celebrations or transition graphics and camera views between plays that you can only skip some of. But honestly, if I had the option to turn all of these bells and whistles off, I absolutely would, because it does lose its flair pretty quickly for me.
Although the commentary has improved in its variety immensely since earlier versions, it's still something that many players like to turn off a lot because it gets annoying and frequently they just keep carrying on even if a big play breaks out that should interrupt them.
All in all, I still enjoy the game year after year despite its many shortcomings. I bought Madden NFL 25 in 2024 because it seems very likely it'll be the last one with a PS4 release, and I'm not a big enough gamer to rationalize buying a PS5 or any other next-gen console. I may switch to PC eventually, but I've gotten to a point where I only buy new versions of the game every few years anyway. My personal rating as an overall franchise for this game is 4 out of 5 stars. Madden is a good enough game that I still very much enjoy playing, but because it decided to buy away any opportunity for other games to truly compete since the early 2000s, it's tough to get very excited about year after year.
And even the best improvements year to year still underwhelm and leave fans wondering what pro football gaming could have become with other competing options still available.
All right, everyone, thank you for stopping by. We do appreciate it. Well, I do appreciate it, at least. I can't speak for you, Michaela.
Yeah, I'm actually not super big on emotion or even turning my head most of the time, honestly. Oftentimes, I can't even remember how many fingers people should even have.
Hey, I'm sure you'll get there. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now.
Bye.